Test, test.
1, 2, 3.
Great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next installment of the Vitalik and Roger show, where this time we're talking about privacy and the Ethereum ecosystem. Would you like to start this, or how should we begin?
Sure. I mean, I think maybe some background, right? I think we've talked a lot about privacy this whole week. Privacy has been a core value of the crypto space. I actually think all the way back since the real beginning of the cryptocurrency space, which is David Chaum's eCash in 1982, which was actually private but not decentralized. And so originally privacy came first, right? And then of course Bitcoin was famously decentralized but not private. And we have the technology now to really have both at the same time. And so we're going full circle, right? And privacy is a human right. Privacy is a basic expectation that people, and even in many cases, people who do not who were not able to enjoy many human rights, nevertheless had for thousands of years, just because in the offline world there is just inherent limits to how much information you're able to collect and process. But in the digital world, these things are very quickly changing, and we need to make sure that privacy continues being a reality. And for us in Ethereum, for the last especially year, I think we've had a big push toward these kinds of goals being, first-class priorities, for not just at a very theoretical way, but also at the in a way that really directly touches users. So I guess maybe Roger could maybe just briefly go through Tor and some of the evolution that Tor has had over the past couple of decades and where the project is now.
Yeah, so Tor is a privacy project at the network layer. The goal, so from my perspective, I look at privacy from two pieces. The first one is at the application layer. In the Tor world, we think of this as Tor browser, where we try to get the browser layer, cookies, fonts, all sorts of cookie-like things safe. But underneath that is the network layer, where when you're using Tor, somebody watching you locally can't learn what destinations you're going to, and somebody at the destination end can't figure out what IP address you're coming from, and no single point in the middle is able to match up which users are going to which destinations. So from my perspective, every time I see a new application situation like the Ethereum one, I think, okay, great. You need to think about application layer privacy. You need to think about whether the bytes you're sending back and forth are revealing what you want to reveal and don't accidentally put things you don't want. And then underneath that, at the network layer, by default, it should all be private, anonymous, secure. You should not be revealing your IP address to the people that you're talking to, and that lets you choose at the application layer how much you want to reveal. Maybe it makes sense to use Tor to get to Facebook and then log into Facebook if you choose to, or maybe it makes sense to use Tor to get to Facebook and not log into Facebook if you choose to. So the goal of Tor in that context is to give you, the user, the choice about how much information you want to reveal to whoever you're talking to. And you shouldn't, by default, reveal everything to people watching you, to large telephone companies or intelligence agencies in the middle, or to the websites you talk to.
Yeah, so when I first saw Tor 20 years ago, to me, my mental model of Tor is this is a private browser, right? Tor is a browser, and I open Tor, and through Tor I can either access regular websites in an anonymized way, or I can access hidden services. And one of the shifts that I think has been interesting is viewing Tor not just as like that kind of like full stack thing that contains a browser, but as a general purpose infrastructure, that as something that protocols more generally can plug into. And Tor is about making everything that happens over the internet be able to happen in a much more privacy preserving way. So can you maybe talk a bit about that journey?
Yeah, so absolutely. Back at the beginning, we were in the peer-to-peer community. Now peer-to-peer means something else. And then we were decentralized, and maybe decentralized will mean something else soon. But part of the point of this was we're building an overlay network over the internet that gives you various security properties. And yes, you can use it for web browsing, but you can also use it for anonymized messaging where each side is a Tor user, so you don't have to know who is which. So one of the other fun things in the Tor world is the variety of types of people who care about it over time. We've had interest and use by militaries, by governments and law enforcement, by individual people who read newspaper articles about NSA, spying on them, or companies losing data. We've had use by folks in the Middle East in the Arab Spring situation. So having all those types of users blending together on the same privacy system is part of how the journey has come to this. So it'd be great to have even more varieties of users, such as the Ethereum folks.
So what are some of the most interesting and surprising kind of application users of Tor that you've had so far?
Yeah, so at the beginning, it was just the Tor proxy. It was the one, and we said, maybe you want to hook up a web browser to this. Good luck getting that right. And that turned out to nobody got it right. So we realized we had to include the browser in what we were developing. Some of the cooler use cases came from Onion services, where originally Onion services were, so basically once you've got the building block of I can go somewhere safely over Tor, glue two of those building blocks together so the client can reach the Onion service, and the Onion service doesn't have to know where the client is, the client doesn't have to know where the Onion service is, and nobody in the middle can know either of them. And that started off with people running websites that governments would get upset about. But then we started having more interesting use cases. There's one called Onion Share, where imagine you're a journalist and you want to share the Snowden documents with another journalist. You run Onion Share locally. It spins up a web server on your computer, spins up a single-use Onion address. You send that address to your friend who puts that into Tor browser and downloads it, and then your web server goes away, and there's nothing left on the internet there's no evidence that any transfer happened. So this is how file sharing should be done on the internet. And it's something that you can build once you have building blocks like Onion services.
Yeah, and one of the other things that surprised me is that Bitcoin nodes are start connecting through Tor now, right?
Yeah, that was also, so I met the Ethereum Foundation people at FOSS Asia in Hanoi a few years ago, and I had just found this graph on bitnodes.io, which was the portion of Bitcoin nodes that are reachable over IPv4 or IPv6 or Onion services. And at this point, something like 3/4 of the Bitcoin nodes are only reachable as their Onion addresses. So we, the Tor network, are the critical infrastructure underneath the Bitcoin network, which is quite a world to live in.
Yeah, so now I think this is a good time to get into what we're doing with Ethereum. And I think here the big new thing that we wanted to talk about is that we now have an effort in the Ethereum Foundation to put Tor and Onion hidden services into the Ethereum ecosystem across the stack, pretty much everywhere where we're doing that as possible. So this is something that we started thinking about a few months ago. Basically, we've, I think, had a big conceptual shift from thinking about privacy purely as ZKing your transactions and publishing a proof that you have a coin instead of directly publishing the index of your coin and linking all your money together, to this much more holistic vision where, I mean, if you've seen me present about this before, you've probably seen the graph where you have privacy of writes and privacy of reads. And this includes things like being able to read data from the Ethereum blockchain without having to give up your entire access patterns to an RPC node. And one of the other big components here is broadcasting transactions, right? Because if someone is spying on the network, then they can see the transactions that you're sending as soon as they leave your machine. And so we're looking at that layer. We are looking at applications across the Ethereum network. We're looking at other kinds of user level applications, and basically really pushing up the standard of privacy for Ethereum, both at the low levels and the high levels and across the stack.
Yeah, one of the ways that I look at this, and I've been talking to the anonymous single show credential people for decades now, and I keep running across the application layer credential people saying, I've got all this flexibility in my protocol. I can go from totally identified to totally anonymous, and you can choose anywhere in the spectrum. And I always look at them and say, that's great, but this 97% of your spectrum, you're sharing your IP address with the server. So it's awesome that you've got your anonymized single show whatever, but I get to know who you are when you're doing it. So remembering both sides of this is key, and it's awesome that Ethereum is now aiming to be more holistic in this. So I guess one question for you, I don't know enough about the various pieces, layers of the Ethereum architecture. We've got users sending their transactions. We've got users trying to read from the blockchain. We've also got validators, and those have to talk really quickly. So we talked a couple of days ago about the traditional finance people of the world wanting to drive down the blockchain frequency down to 200 milliseconds. How do you balance the wanting privacy at that layer versus wanting everything the finance people want at that layer?
I think at some point, I mean, even for reasons that go beyond privacy, we do have to put our foot down and say, Ethereum is not going to be the fastest. Ethereum is not going to be able to compete with chains that have 30 or 300 nodes on things like latency, and the Ethereum L1 will not deliver like literal blink of an eye UX where you're not seeing delays at all. And I think we just have to be open and honest about that, because Ethereum's primary goal is to be the world ledger. It is to be the network that is decentralized, that is censorship resistant, and that it is like the file of Galadriel in Lord of the Rings. It's the light that remains when all the other lights go out, right? And that kind of goal, I think, needs to be primary for Ethereum in order for Ethereum to be the home of applications that last in the long term, that, like finance, where the upside is plus 1%, the downside is minus 100%, where you really depend on that level of reliability, right? And aside from privacy, the other reason is geographic decentralization, right? We do not need a network where even because of incentive pressures, nodes would naturally all concentrate in like London and New York, right? We need a network where it's not just possible, but also economically viable to participate from places like Buenos Aires and Southeast Asia and say Zambia, right? And this is, but then improving privacy at the same time is important, right? And I think we've started by identifying the places where privacy is the most important, right? And the really key one actually is privacy for denial of service resistance, right? Because even though the network has a lot of nodes, there's a very small number of nodes that are responsible at each individual slot, right? And so there's one node that is the proposer. And if you can identify the proposer ahead of time and you can do a targeted denial of service attack, that lets you basically kill the chain. And the possibility of that happening is itself, an incentive for people to just rely on centralized actors. So for a few years, we've had these proposals in the pipeline. They're called SSLE, Single Secret Leader Election, that basically allow proposers to be chosen in a zero-knowledge way, but where only the proposer is aware that they're the proposer right up until the very moment that they actually make their proposal. And actually, if we want, you could even, with the newer ZK stuff, extend that and say you keep your privacy even after that point, right? And so we've been exploring that, I think in all of these situations, like you have to combine a kind of blockchain layer, like data leak minimization with a network layer equivalent, and some form of onion routing and mixed nets is going to be very important for that. The core, the core challenge here basically is making that both work and be fast enough, and also be economically viable, right? So that people don't, feel the pressure to give up on it and do things like maximizing transaction fees.
You said the word censorship resistance earlier, and this is actually the phrase that confused me at first, because I found the cryptocurrency people years ago, and I'm like, I work on censorship resistance. We've got Russia trying to block Tor, we've got China trying to block Tor, and they're like, oh wow, you gotta come talk to us about censorship resistance. We do that too. And it was months until I realized they meant application level censorship resistance, as in you can't stop transactions from happening. And I meant network layer censorship resistance, as in users can reach your network. So China has said they don't like cryptocurrencies. When is China going to block Ethereum at the network layer? When are they going to start rolling out Great Firewall style blacklists of the validators and the proxies and so on? And what do we do then?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think these are things that are really important to build up defenses on, and so like we need Ethereum to be a globally accessible network where people from anywhere in the world are able to participate as users, and also as like nodes, like doing staking and participating in the network, right? And there's like a certain base level of this which is possible just by being a decentralized network, and I think like 10 years ago that was enough, and now that's not enough. And really, building out the technology to go on to actually like make it possible to have a node, to have it not be immediately detectable as a node, and at the same time, like actually be fast enough is, it's a super important problem. One thing also, I think proof of stake, it often gets talked about either about helping the ETH supply go down or about not killing trees, which are both good, but it has this other benefit, which is that it allows you, it basically means that to be one of the nodes that is holding up the network, you don't need this huge server farm, which is incredibly easy to detect and incredibly easy to censor. And instead, like as a proof of stake node, it's like basically you can run one off of a laptop, right? And in the future, hardware requirements for that will go down even further, right? So that's something that we care about as well. So no, I think it's an ongoing journey and an ongoing process.
So one of the things that we in the Tor world have been working on are called pluggable transports, and the idea is Tor takes care of your privacy, and the transport that you have inside Tor browser transforms your Tor traffic into some protocol that the sensor doesn't want to block, and talks to some destination the sensor doesn't know to block. And I was talking to Igor from PSE, and he's excited not only about adding onion services to everything and Torifying everything, but also including some of the pluggable transports. There's one called Snowflake that transforms your traffic into WebRTC, and part of the goal there is to have like the wallets and the blockchain reading software not only be able to give you privacy at the network layer, but also eventually have some of these pluggable transports included, so that if you're in China and you want to get to that website they blocked, then you can either it turns it on for you, or you can click help I'm being censored, and then you can route your transaction read or write over something that still lets you reach the network.
Yeah, no, I think that would help a lot. I mean, I think from a privacy perspective, from a censorship resistance perspective, and even just from a resilience perspective, right? Like once you move away from just talking directly to a server, often things break, and having multiple ways to connect to a network helps things break less. So I think it's a major win for Ethereum, and I look forward to us integrating all of this.
Sounds good. We're officially out of time according to this, but according to the organizers, we've got 6 more minutes, so we're going to keep talking for 6 more minutes. In terms of so we've got some short-term plans of onionifying, torifying a bunch of pieces of the ecosystem. What does this look like in a year or two? Once we've got, I guess, what are the stumbling blocks between there? Do you envision all the wallet operators being excited and they just do this, or do you need to go to them one at a time and advocate to them? How do we get from here to there?
Yeah, so I think the good news is that with the Kohaku stuff that we've announced this week, there's already a lot of momentum of wallets understanding that we are working on these kinds of things, and that we are going to be churning out software packages that makes all of these things as plug and play as possible. And so there's already been interest from quite a few wallets in integrating these technologies. Another piece of the puzzle, I think, is going to be basically verifying that wallets are actually doing it, right? It's the difference between claiming that you're decentralized as a marketing term and actually being decentralized. And so we've had a project called L2Beat, which basically verifies how trustless are individual Ethereum L2s, and it publishes a bunch of information. It kind of compresses it into stage 0, stage 1, and stage 2. And so there's a project that's still starting early stage wallet beat to do a similar thing for wallets. People have also I know talked about doing a ZK beat for ZK protocols, and just expanding that kind of accountability layer for the ecosystem. So that's important too. So existence of technology, existence of these easy to use SDKs, actually verifying that people are doing it and not just advertising that they're doing it, but still collecting your data in 100 different ways. These things are all really important near term, and then if we can get to a place where in 1 year at least, wallets users will be able to access wallets and will be able to access applications through wallets in a way that the user's privacy is protected both on-chain and in terms of their interaction with both the dApp and the RPC node. I think that's already an amazing goal, and we'll be in a much better place. And then the strength of the Ethereum ecosystem is it's so parallelized, right? And so in 5 years, hopefully we'll have much better user level privacy, and we'll have a much more hardened and privacy-friendly and resilient Ethereum network, and we can have all of these things together. That's exciting for me. What excites you about the next 5 years of Tor?
Yeah, oh boy. Part of the momentum of people around the world are starting to realize, we saw the Snowden documents, we saw the NSA leaks, we see more and more companies losing their data. So there are a lot of ordinary people out there who are still realizing, wait, privacy is important. And part of the fun of working on all this is reaching so many different types of people who care about privacy for different reasons, and helping them understand what tools are available and how they can be more safe on the internet. So again, for me, it comes down to the people. So finding all the different NGOs around the world who are trying to help their communities be safer, that's the part that excites me, and we have a lot more work to do in terms of, every time I read about a new law against certain kinds of people in Uganda, or RightsCon is happening in Africa this coming couple of months, and they have some laws that are making the trans LGBTQ community not not want to go to RightsCon because that country is a scary place to go to. So while the world is realizing privacy is more important, also the governments are making it a scarier and scarier place. So we'll see what happens when those two collide.
Yeah. Well, I think those of us who really care about privacy should remember that we have a lot more allies and a lot more people in the world who care about the same causes than we realize, and we need to really figure out how to strengthen those relationships and work together to make a more private, more free, and more dignified internet happen.
Speaking of working together, one of the topics that I've been pondering, so we talked on Wednesday about Tor as a commons and like the capitalism-based building block or the altruism-based building block. So the Tor network is made up of volunteer relay operators, and as a project like Ethereum shows up and adds a lot more load to the Tor network, one of the things that's helpful to do is, since it's a commons, to give back at the relay capacity layer also. And that could look like the Ethereum Foundation running a bunch of relays, or there are a bunch of nonprofits around the world that already run relays, and it could look like helping to support those nonprofits.
Maybe tell us about running a relay. Like, what are the costs? How much compute do you need? How much bandwidth do you need?
Yeah, so running a relay is just installing the Tor program and editing a text file to configure it to be a relay and having an IP address that's reachable from the rest of the world. So you can do this at your university, at your workplace. Some people do it from home. In the modern world, people get a virtual servers somewhere and run relays there. And part of the challenge with that is they all get the same virtual server at the same German company, and then we've got centralization versus diversity challenges.
Yeah, maybe one of the things we could do is make it easy for stakers to also be relays at the same time.
Yes, so, yep. That would be awesome. So if you're working on packaging easy staker software, come talk to us about how you could also put in a Tor relay at the same time. And one of the other fun things about adding Onion service support to all these things, if you're connecting to like CNN.com over Tor, you need to have an exit relay involved so you can exit the Tor network and go to that website. But if you're going to some wallet service over its Onion address, you don't need an exit relay involved. So getting all the stakers running non-exit relays is less of a request, less of an ask, easier for them to do. It's all about bandwidth and connectivity, and not so much about whether it's scary or not to be a Tor relay. So I think that would be a great, easy onboarding way to help you, help us, help you.
Amazing. Thank you, Roger.